everybody, it's me, John Ward, and we are back for another One Filmmaker, One Film. And with me today is...
My name is Rob Darren. I'm a filmmaker. I reside in North Carolina. I've made one feature film, White Pain, A Clown's Story. I've done several short films. I was also an assistant director on Ted Michaels, Astro Zombies, and Free Clone. And I've worked on some Hollywood sets as an extra and some small casting director parts, including John Adams, Evan and Mighty, and currently my last project was Mute, which is of course a Stephen King story.
Great, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So that's a good segue.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, because you're unique in a way, because you are one of the people who did one of the Stephen King Dollar Baby films. So explain to people out there that don't, know or understand what a Stephen King Dollar Baby is.
What a Dollar Baby is, it's basically an arrangement where Stephen King grants permission to film students and aspiring filmmakers like me to adopt one of his short stories for $1. He's been doing it since the 1970s. He does have some stipulations. It is a signed contract. It can be viewed at film festivals or personal viewings or film classes, unless it's granted special permission from him. One of the first Dollar Baby filmmakers happens to be Frank Darabont. He was the one that did the director that did Shawshank Redemption and Green Mile and The Mist. And his first Dollar Baby movie was Woman in a Room. You can go on YouTube and check that out. That's basically what a Dollar Baby movie project is. He gives you that permission to grant make one of his short stories.
Now, I haven't seen a lot of them. I've seen a few of them. And of course, I worked on your film. So I have an idea of, what it is. The Frank Darabont film for Woman in the Room is excellent. I mean, it's you can even see back then what type of filmmaker he would become. So it's not like Stephen King reaches out to you and says, like, let's just say if somebody wanted to make The Woman in the Room, Stephen King wouldn't reach out to you and say, hey, why don't you make one of my Dollar Baby films? There's the list, like you said, you contact them, there's the contract that gets filled out, and then you make a film. So at no point does Stephen King contact the filmmaker and say, hey, make one of these Dollar Baby films for me. It's all on the person who's contacting him. Is that correct?
Correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, story goes about 40 years ago, he had students trying to reach him to see if they could do some of his short stories. And he wanted to, but there was some legalities going with it. So that's why he came up with the dollar contract. That's how that evolved. So you pay $1 and it becomes an official contract.
So you've talked about this on Facebook, obviously, because you've been promoting the film. So if somebody on Facebook, let's say, were to be like, hey, I'm making a Stephen King movie, I'm making The Woman in the Room, filling out contracts now, waiting to hear back, making it sound like they actually were contacted by Stephen King, and that, that's just not true. So that's not, it's a special list of short films that he has not given out to Hollywood. And like you said, he's given out to like students and indie filmmakers to make films from these projects or from these titles.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's cool. So why Mute? Like, out of the ones that are listed, how many are there? Like 10 that are listed on there that you could do?
20, I believe there's around 20. About 20, yeah.
So why Mute then?
Mute. The idea for Mute. By the way, I stumbled upon that site. By the way, I ran a tax office. Was manager of tax office, and there was a lot of downtime. And I was going on the internet, and I just stumbled across his Dollar Baby information in a site, and I'm like, I can do that. So that's how I got started. As far as like why Mute, well, number one, the production of it was half of it's in a confession booth and the other half isn't a confession booth. So I knew production wise, it was a smart decision. Of course, the story is what intrigued me the most. And also the characters. I like how the characters evolved during the movie. That was a big reason why I picked that movie. And of course, I had a small crew. Half of it was in a confession booth, and like it didn't have me like blowing up buildings or having people jump off buildings or blowing stuff up and things like that. So I knew I was able to do that on a tight budget.
Okay. So out of because you said there's like 20 of them. So Mute was the one that just seemed more affordable to make, a little more logical than maybe some of the other ones that are on there.
Correct. That was one of the key reasons. And of course, the story. I like the story. How, like I said, with characters, how the characters evolved in the story, and it was intriguing.
Without giving spoilers, what's the story about? Like, what can you just give like a brief little example?
Yes, it's about a book salesman. He's having troubles with his marriage. His wife is seeing some rich cowboy Bob, and so she's having an affair with him. And then she embezzled all this money. She's basically has a checkbook. She's an administrative assistant for a school system, and she's got a checkbook, and she ends up embezzling over $100,000. And her lover are out spending it and having fun and having sex parties and just buying lottery tickets. And the main character, Blaine, he's driving down the highway. He picks up a hitchhiker who's mute, can't speak, can't hear. So he basically vents all his problems to this hitchhiker, knowing he can't hear. And later on, his wife and the lover are murdered in a motel. And basically, he's in a confession booth. He's telling the whole story, and it kind of flashes back and forth in the confession booth. He's telling this priest he's feeling really bad about the whole situation, and that's basically what it is. So he's going through a lot, basically.
Okay, so his wife's having an affair with this person. He's confessing everything to this priest who's listening to everything, and so it's present day, and then it's shown in a flashback because he's telling everything to a priest.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And he actually becomes friends with this priest too. He gives up a lot of information about what happened. Of course, he's in a confession booth. He's looking for forgiveness, but it kind of has a little twist at the end. Like I said, the hitchhiker's supposed to be mute, can't talk, can't hear, according to the main character, and he just unloads all his problems, his frustrations, to a non-listening ear.
Right. Which, yeah, I mean, if it's bothering him that much, then probably, yeah, talking to somebody who's can't talk and can't hear, wouldn't be the worst thing. I mean, you could just get everything out, and there technically would be no ramifications to it.
Exactly.
So now,
priest, confession.
Right. It's so the original story that's in the Stephen King book, it takes place at night. So you have yours taking place during the day in the desert, and I think also in the book it's raining really hard. Why did you choose the desert and day to night and rain?
Well, I knew I had to film this in Vegas because with my crew and actors I was going with, most of them are based in California and Nevada. So I knew I was going to have to film it in Vegas, but of course it doesn't rain in Vegas. It rains I believe you're in Vegas, it rains 4 inches a year. So I knew rain wasn't going to be in the movie more than likely. So what I did, I felt like he's isolated out in the rainstorms. You know, he's in isolation, and basically being on a desert, he's still isolated. And I'm a big fan of like the 70s TV movies. And I used to love the movies when they had the desert, the hitchhiker premise to it. And I felt like that would it would change it a little bit, just enough to make it. I mean, it's to me, it's not always good to follow the book straight exactly. And I feel like that version, by putting that little spin on it, kind of changed it up a little bit for the better.
It's an interesting contrast to the book. Yeah, because it's almost the polar opposite of what the book is. And like you had mentioned with those films from the 70s, like The Hitchhiker is one. I think David Hess was in that one. There's also one with Edmund O'Brien that's also called The Hitchhiker. A lot of these movies do take place out in the desert or just like kind of in the middle of nowhere. And there's a reason for that, which is the isolation and what do you do? Because you have miles and miles of nothing. So it's one of those things of what do you do? And of course, these days with a cell phone, you're probably not going to get very good reception out there. So, who are you going to call if this, person is chasing you down or something, if that's what the story is? So it's definitely, have you gotten any sort of feedback on that from the change from the book to your film?
A little feedback, like diehard Stephen King fans, they want to know, like, most of his stories take place in Maine, different places in Maine around where he lives. So it was a little different, and they asked the same question that you asked, and I give them that answer. I did mention Maine in the film. It was a little nod, Easter egg nod, when he's talking to his daughter who's freaking out because the debit card won't pay for her college meal with Barlow. So she's freaking out about that. And see, I lost my thought. I'm sorry. So anyway, she's freaking out about so she's going to college in Maine, basically. So I did get that thrown in there.
Okay. Yeah, because I like the change. I agree with you. It doesn't have to be exactly what the short story or novel, has to be. So it can be different. And obviously, since this is a dollar baby, story, other people can make this short. So they may choose to have it actually take place at night in the rain, and your film will stand out because of the difference.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I felt like it was, felt like it was a good change. One of the few changes I did to it was a good change.
Now, why did you choose like Vegas? Why not get like a cast and crew where you're at and shoot it there?
Well, I worked with the cast and most of the cast and most of the crew out in Vegas. So I wanted to work with them again. And budget wise, it made sense. I basically wrote the screenplay for the actors that I had in mind. And it just made sense. And they wanted to come on board and made it work, So I would say basically it was a production value decision.
Okay, that's cool. So once you figured out, you got your story, you're going to shoot mute, you got the okay from Stephen King and everything. You're like, I'm going to write this. I'm going to, do it in Vegas. How did you then determine what your budget would be? Because you obviously have to fly out here, but then you also have a cast and crew, locations, sets and all that. So how did you determine that budget?
Well, most of my crew was all in Vegas. So I flew to Vegas, and one of my actresses who played Barb, I stayed with her. I was out there for 11 days. We shot 3 days and was there 8 days. But I figured it out. Of course, I had to figure out the travel arrangements, flying out there. I had to figure out equipment, getting the equipment out there. Props was a big thing. And when I was a tax manager, I worked on a lot of that on downtime. I made some of my own props, bought some of my props. I had to get a studio out there for the concession scene. It's half the movie I wanted to be in a studio So I did that. Location scouting was probably one of the most difficult things to do because I was in North Carolina finding locations in Vegas. So I had like a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D for everything. Thank God I did, because when I went out there to actually look at locations, some of the locations, like one of the first churches we filmed at, the outside scenes, was right next to a highway, so that wasn't going to work. There was, I mean, just the location. I would say those 8 days not filming, I spent probably 6 of those days just location, nailing down locations. Let's see, ADR. I had to go back in ADR Vegas, the bar scene, because we had a little fan in there. It was getting on my nerves. So I went back in ADR that. But we got that. We actually didn't even use the ADR. What we did is some friends of mine, they have a band called Suburban Tea Party. And I was able to kind of make it look like, take the jukebox sound and kind of merge it into the movie. I did cut the bar scene a lot. It was about 7 minutes. I cut it down to about 3.5, 4 minutes. Building the confession booth. See, I had to drape it. And what I did is all my props, and I spent a lot of money on draping the confession booth. So what I did is I sent everything in boxes to where I was staying. So I sent it all out before. It was like 9 boxes of stuff I had to send out. My budget total was about $7,000.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cheap for a movie. But most of that was traveling, and I would say props and the studio time. I had to pay for that too. So I just figured it out. I just figured, okay, this is how much money I need to make this. I really wanted to make it, so I made it happen.
Yeah. So yeah, 7,000, and the film's roughly what, 30 minutes?
27.
27. Okay. So that's good for,
which is kind of a long one for a Stephen King short. Most of them are a little shorter than that. But yeah, that's how I came up with that budget,
Yeah, I
plus my crew.
I rewatched it, and I thought 30 minutes was fine. It didn't it wasn't boring, it didn't lag. I didn't see anything that was unnecessary. It seemed to flow quite naturally. So 30 minutes seemed to fit it quite well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the good feedbacks I got from that was I did some focus group showings, and every single focus group wanted more. They wanted more of it. So I was happy to hear that. That was like it was critical feedback, but that's what they wanted. They wanted more.
Okay, but yeah, well, that's excellent then. So that's great feedback. So so now you got your budget in place and everything, what you're doing, you got your props all ready to go. So what would you say was your pre-production time? Like from, I know I'm doing this, to, all right, I'm flying out to Vegas and stuff. What was your production time?
See, I got the okay from Stephen King's people. Was it February of 2018? Yeah, February 2018. So once I got the okay, of course I wrote the script. I did a shot list. As you know, it's probably the most important thing. One of the most important things. Casting, and of course, once I did the casting, I had to send sides out to them, get all that lined up. The props, a lot of props that I actually made, a lot of them. See, location scouting from North Carolina, that was a big thing. I had probably 8 churches lined up for the outdoor shots. So I had a plan, backup plans for everything. See, I had to set up the studio time. I had to set up the where the motel was going to be. We filmed the motel scene and the bar scene. We had to, figure that out. There was a lot of figuring out, but going behind pre-production can be very lengthy. It was about 4 months of pre-production before we actually went out and filmed it.
So how did you, being long distance, you can't physically go to the location that you're going to be shooting at. How did you find like the Pahrump location, like for the road? How did you nail down the bar and the church and stuff from such a long distance away?
Well, like the bar, I had about 3 bars lined up, and I like what got me on the bar scene was the bathroom with the graffiti. I don't know, just I like that whole. It was kind of dingy. It was called the dive bar actually. So like I basically did it through the internet, um, and like of course the church and then the motel. I knew there were some motels down on Boulder Highway that were older motels, so I wanted to get one of those. Hardest part was trying to find a name for the motel because it's the Grove Motel. So obviously I had to make sure I was aware of that. But basically I did a lot of it from North Carolina, a lot of it through the internet. And like I said, I had a backup plan. So seeing the what else did we have? The studio, of course. I knew that was half the movie right there. So
Now you mentioned the bathroom in the bar. I remember that, and of course, it's in the film. How did you know about the bathroom being long distance? Like, if you're looking at a website, did you see a picture of what it looked like, or did somebody maybe walk through with a camera? How did you figure out the bathroom?
when I actually saw a picture on their website. I actually saw a picture. It showed a picture of the bathroom. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I want. And it's funny because the camera guy I worked with, I met him on Craigslist of all places, and we did a lot of talking over the phone. And he did some location scouting for me as well, just to look and see if it was feasible. So he was a big help, and he just did it from North Carolina, and then came out and had backup plans, because obviously the church wasn't the first choice; it was about the fourth choice. The bar was pretty much set on that because I contacted the bar and asked them if they could let me film in there for a few hours while they were still operating, which they were really nice enough to do that. And the motel was there wasn't a lot of people staying there, so I knew that was a pretty good motel to pick. That's pretty much it, how I did it.
Yeah, everybody seemed to work with you very well. All the proprietors. So I remember the bar was very open. The hotel was very open. I would probably say the only down part to any of that was when we were filming out in Pahrump, all the cars driving by. Because it's that'd be about it. But of course, they don't know what you're doing. But yeah, everybody seemed to be pretty open to to letting you film. So that was very nice of them.
Yeah, I knew having out in Sandy Valley out there in the desert, I knew there wouldn't be a whole lot of cars. There was actually more cars than I thought there was going to be. I had been out there before and I always had loved it out there, and I just thought it would be a nice desert place to film. Of course, there's a lot of desert in Nevada, but I just like the way the mountains are arranged and the way the desert is. And I think we had the police come by once or twice checking on us in the desert. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
they were just making sure we were okay.
Yeah. The nice were the police were pretty nice about that, and that same stretch of road I used for Medoka Massacre 4, including working with Romeo who shot me.
Nice.
And I picked that location because it looked beautiful and was out of the way and all that stuff. You maybe had a few cars going by. I mean, I don't know what was going on the day we were shooting on that same road. I swear like 200 cars were going by. So constantly the camera had to be kind of like pointed up or to the side or whatever it was, so we could avoid these cars, and hoping in post that we could take out those sounds. So great location, but man, those cars were just a nightmare. So it's I'm glad it worked
on Sunday too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
cover that up.
Yeah, and I think I did mine on like a Tuesday or something, figuring, okay, there'll be no cars out here. Man, was I wrong. So so now with the so production time, what did you originally plan for your production, and what did you end up with?
Originally, I had planned on filming, I believe it was a Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Wednesday, filmed, of course, the bar scene and the motel scene, and which, by the way, I thought worked out really well because the crew, of course, you were on the crew. The crew, we had never met each other before in person.
Right.
and I thought we gelled pretty good. As far as we were supposed to film on Friday originally at the, we were going to do the confession scene, the argument in the park, which that changed too, finding the note, and the outside church stuff. Well, Bob Morocco, the lead character and plays lead character, he was coming off a game show. He was a game show casting guy for was it Price is Right? No, it wasn't. Let's Make a Deal, I believe it was. One of those game shows. Anyway, he had come off like, I don't know, 7 straight weeks of working every day.
Oh,
So
wow.
his last day was Friday. He was supposed to be, last day was supposed to be Thursday, and it carried over to Friday. So obviously he couldn't make it on Friday. So I said, well, we're gonna have to reschedule. So we scheduled Saturday. We did all the confession scene, the outside church scene, the argument, and the fighting the note all Saturday. And then Sunday we did the desert scene all day.
Yeah, I remember we had to build the confessional, that it all came in pieces, and we're all slapping it all together on that day, and it worked out well. I mean, seeing it from a distance, you might kind of be like, I don't know, and then you see it on film, and it's like, oh, looks like a confessional. It worked. So yeah, it worked out really well.
We had to film it tight too. It had to be really tight, of course. Originally I wanted to do it in a Catholic church, a real church, and do the tracking shot down the middle of the aisle and have the confession booth, everything, the real confession booth. But there was a lot of hoops to go through because I contacted a couple Catholic churches, and the preacher was saying, well, I have to go to this person, that person's go to that person. It was a hierarchy type thing. And I was like, you know what, this ain't gonna work. So we decided to just go ahead and do it in the studio. It just had to keep it really tight, and of course build the set ourselves, and it worked out.
Yeah, which in a way might have worked better, because then we could kind of move around more. You had a lot more, leverage with what you could actually shoot, instead of having it stationary. And maybe, if it was done in a real location, you might only be able to get 1 or 2 angles, but you were able to get whatever you pretty much wanted.
Mm-hmm. Plus being in a studio, of course, the sound, and I didn't have no sound issues really. And it was, the only thing we had was the airport, the airplanes, but it wasn't too bad that day.
No. Yeah, Vegas can be bad with that stuff because the airport, and then of course the military being out here, but all depends on when you shoot. So, and then of course there's airplane lessons and helicopters and all that too. So it's all when you shoot. Some days you're lucky and some days
it's like
you're
Murphy's
not.
Law. It's like,
yeah. And we got pretty lucky.
So
yeah, exactly. So
another thing we get.
Oh, go on.
I was gonna say we got really lucky on the desert too, because we filmed in June, and you know how hot the desert can be in June, and it was in the 90s and it wasn't in the hundreds. And I know it doesn't sound like a big drop, but it is. And
especially being out there with it's just sky. I mean, it's just the sun hitting on you, and there's no places to go for, unless you're sitting inside a car. So yeah, it could get pretty hot out there and pretty bad. So on Meetup 4, I actually got 3rd-degree burns on the bottom of my feet, because my the sneakers I were wearing were just really cheap, I guess, and the bottoms of them were not made very well. So that was the first day of shooting, and then the second day I could barely walk, and one of the cast members looked at my feet, and she's like, yeah, you got 3rd-degree burns on your feet. So I could barely move during that. And so it could get really hot out there. So people need to be aware of that when they shoot out in the desert, that, you got to have umbrellas and sunglasses and hats and sunscreen, and make sure you got good shoes. So it could get really bad, but we did pretty well out there. So I was pretty impressed. So,
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about that June. Once I scheduled the production, I'm like, what am I thinking? We're going to be filming in the desert in the middle of June or beginning of June. I was like, I don't know if it's a good idea, but I had already set everything in place, and I said, well, we'll make it work,
Well, that's kind of how filmmaking works. If you're going to shoot outside, somehow we're always going to shoot when it's the hottest. If you're, like out in the desert, if you're going to shoot, indoors or, in some cold type of building, of course, you're going to shoot during the winter. It's like no matter what, it's not like you're going to shoot during the coldest time of the year in the desert, which would probably be more comfortable. No, you got to pick the hottest time of the year, which is just typical filmmaking. So, it just happens to be that way. So, all right. So post-production, what was post-production like? Because after you split, I didn't hear from you for a while. So let me know.
For a while.
Yeah. What was post-production like?
Well, I normally use Sony Vegas, like Sony Vegas Pro. So I did a rough cut, a very rough cut, and met this editor in North Carolina. He has his own computer repair place, and he has his own film production company, does a lot of editing, things like that. Well, he decided he wanted to help me, and I was like, that'd be great. So I gave it to him and said, work some magic. It took him a while because he basically did it for a favor. He was working all the time. In fact, we had to actually get a hold of Stephen King's people and get an extension on the year, because you're supposed to make that movie within a year. They actually gave us another year to make it, to finish it. So they granted me another contract, and he worked on it it took him a while, but and as far as the music goes, music was perfect for it. Kelly Rhodes, classical music was perfect for the desert scenes, for Confession. And of course, the Bourbon Key Party for the bar scene helped a lot. It was like coming from a jukebox. And they both put out great music in their own way. So that worked out. That's pretty much it as far as that goes. We had some focus group viewings, small focus groups, and took a while, but we got it done.
Now, you and Donna Hamlin, she's in the film, both worked with Ted V. Michaels. So did you kind of apply anything that you might have learned from him to making this?
Some of the lighting, we applied a lot of the lighting, like especially in the confession booth, because he was great with lighting. I mean, he had been doing filmmaking for 60 plus years.
Yeah.
He worked just about everybody in the business. And I was actually doing White Paint Clown Story, which is a feature film, which took 7 years to do, by the way, because I had to teach myself to edit and learn the program. It's about a 400-page software book to go with the program. So I used YouTube a lot, and just learned as doing. So it took me a long time. But as far as like Ted Michaels, I was doing his assistant director. I was his assistant director on his After Zombies film. At the same time, I was doing White Paint. So I was learning from him and applying it to that as well. Of course, that carried over to Mute. In fact, the necklace the priest is wearing is Ted's cross, because we dedicate the film to Ted V. Michaels.
Yes.
And he just was he was a type that he didn't like to spend a lot of money, but he'd get the movies made. He he relied on his instincts and old ways. He'd handmake stuff, but the guy was great with lighting. It's probably the most that I learned from him was the lighting, and of course a lot of terms you learn in filmmaking. Just a lot of basic terms that people don't normally know. But I worked with him for, it was about 4 months, 5 months filming the whole step of the way.
Yeah, he unfortunately passed either right after I moved out here or maybe a little before. So once I heard that he lived out here, I was really bummed about that, because I would have loved to have had coffee with him and just, talk to him or work on one of his films. Or we've had a couple, kind of cult filmmakers that live out here. So it's, very unfortunate, but he definitely had a whole bunch of great movies. And I own all the Astro Zombie films and the book about the Astro Zombies. And I've watched his documentary and of course have worked myself with Donna Hamlin, who was in Maximus 2. So it's nice having a little bit of that legacy kind of, still out there that people can use.
Oh, absolutely. I love Ted. In fact, I actually did shots with Ted once. He liked this little bit of shots every once in a while. but he was just down to earth, and he kept it real too. He's like, if you're in this for the money, you're in the wrong business. I mean, as far as like trying to make a movie, he made it from from passion in his heart. Um, he didn't make a lot of money from his movies later, because of course he was used to film and then it switched over to digital, so it was a big change for him. But he actually, while I was doing white paint and working on his movie at the same time, I think he made 2 more movies or 3 more movies by the time I finished white paint and editing. He just kept rolling. He'd rolling movies out.
Yeah, that's the only thing you could do. Yeah, just keep bringing him out, and so he's now got a great legacy behind him. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's awesome that you got to work with him. And I know a few other people that live out here got to work with him, like Drew Marvick, and there's been a few who did Pool Party Massacre. He worked with him. So a lot of the people that are in that book about the Astro Zombie films live out here in Vegas. So it's kind of cool.
Of course, Donna worked with them, and Donna was real
Yeah.
close to him. And that's how I met Donna. Well, I met Donna through Ted Michaels, and also when I first went to Vegas, I was in acting school. I went to act because I always wanted to be an actor since I was young, and I got to credit my mom and dad, especially my dad, because he took me to movies all the time and got me hooked on movies. I mean, I think we went and saw Jaws like 7 times in the theaters. I mean, I was always hounding him about going to the movies, so I got to credit him with that. And just over time, I was like, I went to Vegas, had a chance to go to acting school when I first went there. I went there, and I was like, I like being behind the camera. And he had a couple independent film crews that was in that acting school, so I switched over to filmmaking and loved it ever since. I feel like if I'm cast well, I can play a pretty good part, but I feel much better behind the camera.
No, yeah, I definitely hear you. So I like doing little cameo acting roles myself, but I definitely prefer to be behind the camera. So that to me is the
You're
fun
like
part
me
of
either.
it. It's nice to switch
Yep.
it up every once in a while, but yeah, behind the camera is where it's at. So we got so what are there's a lot of Easter eggs because you're obviously a Stephen King fan and you've read his
Mhm.
material and seen his movies and stuff. What Easter eggs can people look for when they watch the movie?
Let's see. Where do I start here? I'll, s- I shoveled a lot of them in there. I would say there's about 8 or 9 of them in there, I believe. One of them is when he pulls over the desert, his daughter's calling frantically, asking for help for her lunch to buy lunch for her and Barlow. Of course, Barlow's the head vampire in Salem's Lot. And because when Stephen King wrote this story, it was Mr. Manette, and he didn't have a first name. Barb had a first name. Cowboy Bob had a first name. Everybody had a first name except for the lead character. So I'm like, well, that gave me free will to name him whoever I wanted to. So
Mhm.
I figured Blaine would be a good name. And Blaine, of course, I didn't read Dark Tower. I know that's bad, but he was the locomotive in Dark Tower where he would like tell jokes. And if like nobody laughed at it, he would run off the track and commit suicide. That was just like it was a character. So that's where I got Blaine from. Of course, Father Callahan was used in the Dark Tower, I believe. I believe it was Dark Tower. The Chattering Teeth, when the hitchhiker mocks Blaine at the desert when he leaves the car and disappears. The Chattering Teeth. Let's see. The obvious one was the motel room 1408.
Yep.
That was the obvious one. Of course, the daughter in college in Maine. Let's see. What else? In the beginning, when he's checking his watch, it's supposed to be the 10 o'clock club. There's a story called 10 o'clock club. If you look at it, it's like 10 after 10. It's like supposed to be 10 o'clock 10 o'clock club. Also, when he pulls up to the hitchhiker and he says, "Come out from the darkness," which is kind of leads his quirky character, because we're in the middle of the desert. And that's actually a
Right.
line from Dark Shadow, or not Dark Shadow, Dark Tower. It's a line in Dark Tower. Let's see, what else was there? Oh, big one. The graffiti on the wall in the bathroom. That's supposed to be like, there's a story called All That You Love Will Be Carried Away, which is another Stephen King film that's he's allowing someone to make. And it's about a guy, he goes and his only friends are people, he goes in bathrooms and keeps like a journal of graffiti. That's like his friends. It's kind of got some psycho issues. So that was in there. That's why I jumped on the dive bar. When I saw that bathroom scene and saw the graffiti, because I had read All That You Love Carried Away, I'm like, wait a minute, that's an Easter egg itself. So that was pretty big too, which could lead into the next film.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of Easter eggs.
I'm trying to think if there's any more. I think that's about it. Seems like there's another one I'm missing, but yeah, there's a lot of them. I was getting a little carried away there, but
Well, that happens at times when you got that freedom. So, yeah, I'm surprised there aren't more, but that's a good amount. So, because when I was rewatching the film, I was trying to, I caught the Barlow and of course the hotel door. So I was even trying to remember exactly how many were in there. So
it was 9. I want to say 9. 9, I believe it was.
So has Stephen King himself seen the film? And if he did he give feedback, or did his people give feedback?
I'm assuming that he saw it. I haven't gotten feedback from him directly or anything. The only feedback I got was I had asked him, with the COVID pandemic going on, a lot of people can't even be around each other, so it's kind of hard to go to a film festival in person. So I had asked him to grant permission to show it online, because Dollar Baby, one of the stipulations is you can't put the movie online without his permission. You can show it up to a 2-minute trailer or a clip from it. And he said directly, his words, his email said, yes, as long as he lets me know when it's going to be on so I can watch it again. So I'm assuming he saw it and thought it was good enough to put it on the internet.
Oh, excellent.
But I haven't heard directly from him yet. So I assume that he liked it.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. So what's happening with the film right now? What are you doing with it?
Well, we have a virtual film festival coming up at the end of April. It's going to be all Dollar Baby movies.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm looking forward to that. I still have to get the correct dates. I believe it's the 3rd week in April. They're actually supposed to let us know here like any day now. So I'm looking forward to that. Because we really can't put it out in distribution, because of course you can't make profit on it without his permission. He has been known to grant permission for that though. Like, what was it? The Boogeyman, I believe it was. Lawnmower Man, the Boogeyman. Of course, Frank Darabont, we already know that story. So without his permission, I can't distribute it. I'm just hoping it gets noticed, and hopefully the next one will be even bigger.
So that was actually going to be my next question, is, has the film found distribution? How does that work with this type of film? So right now you could show it in festivals with his permission, but it can't go on to any sort of anthologies, or can you release it yourself, like go through Kanaki or something, and just do it yourself?
Well, you can put it in film festivals without his permission. You could do it film festivals, personal viewings, of course, and like film class. You could do that. As far as, I love to put it into where they have short stories. I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm assuming if you let me put it out in public, as long as I'm not making profit, I don't think it'll be a big deal. It's just one of those things. If it's going to be profit, I'm sure they wouldn't be too happy about it at the beginning. But there's no plans for distribution actually at this point.
Are there like DVD collections of Dollar Baby films? You mentioned festival coming up, but are there actually like DVDs that people can buy?
No, I don't think so. Not that I know of. I know they've written about them in books. In fact, we're in a book. There's a book that just came out with this Stephen King Dollar Baby, the book. It's like the Bible of Dollar Baby filmmakers.
Oh, cool.
There's like 55 Dollar Baby filmmakers in there that are interviewed, and then he actually reviewed the film, so he gives his own review of each film. And then he talks about the Dollar Baby program. He has what's his name from the guy that did the Shining TV version, Mick Garris.
Oh, Mick Garris, yeah.
Yeah, he does like a section in the book, and just got word today that it's #1 for, was it Bear Manor Media? It's #1. They were #1 book for the month of March, so it's getting out there.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's
Yeah,
an
that's something
interesting
that
book.
I would pick up. Yeah, yeah, especially with
So that way you can.
Mick Garris. So he's one of my favorite Stephen King guys. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, The
like he did
Stand
The
is
Shining.
yeah, his version of The Shining I think is better than the Kubrick one because it's closer to the book. Big fan of The
Oh
Stand,
yeah,
which is still my favorite Stephen King film. So it's yeah, to have him involved in that book is a big deal. So yeah, that's something I would definitely pick up.
and Stephen King actually liked that version better too. This TV version, probably read about it, but Stanley Kubrick's version he wasn't fond of. It's one of my favorite movies, though, the original Shining. But I do love the TV version, especially when the animals come to life, all the tree animals, and it's more closer to the book. And it's TV version, which is kind of unusual. But
Yeah, Kubrick's version is beautiful. You know, it looks great. It's well directed. It's it's a good movie if you look at it just by itself as a Stanley Kubrick
yes,
movie. That's fine. But if you're looking at it as far as the book goes, it's not even close to the book. I mean, it's in
yeah,
tone and feeling and all that. It's very different. And I think that's
very
where
different.
Mick Garris, definitely succeeds over Kubrick in that. So
Absolutely.
so with now the film being out there for people to see, what has happened to your career as a director, let's say a writer and stuff after the people have seen this film?
I think I've noticed more, just because of the name Stephen King attached to it. Uh, I have some people actually, some big people in Hollywood that are pretty big, real big actually, that have seen it and I've gotten feedback from them. They thought it was good. Just getting more noticed. I just noticed that, when I did White Paint, a clown story, it was a feature film and it's my first film, and I didn't even film it in HD. That's how old it was. I'm proud of it because it took me forever to do it, and feature film for my first film was definitely a challenge. But Mutes definitely put me out there a lot.
That's
Getting
good.
a lot of good
That's good to
feedback
hear.
from it.
Yeah, it's good. It's well shot. It looks nice. So it's nice to see that people are paying attention to it.
Yeah, and then, I'm in that book, and I'm in the book, and then of course getting interviews, more interviews, things like that. Well, as you know, it's a slow process. You want it to be like overnight, like people notice things like that, but it's really slow.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, you gotta. At times, it's the waiting game. So
You have to be used to you have to be used to criticism, of course. I mean, you have your naysayers out there and things like that, but if you stay in your own lane and just worry about what you're doing, I think that's the best way to go.
yeah, I mean, at times the naysayers or the haters can kind of help you, which is why I don't understand why certain filmmakers block them or unfriend them or like ruin friendships because of some sort of negative comment. I mean, it's you know always having good feedback doesn't help you improve. It just, as a filmmaker, it just keeps you on this constant plane where you're never going to change. So
Exactly.
it's yeah, so it doesn't, so somebody who may applaud the Mute as, oh, it's different, it takes place in the desert, it's during the day. You may have somebody who says, well, wait a minute, this isn't the short story, it's supposed to take place at night during the rain. You could get something for both of those, and I think that both
Yeah, because
sides are important.
and like what they say, good filmmakers always say, I don't want to hear how good my movie is. I just want to hear the bad things about you don't like about it, so that way they can improve on that. Of course, with every movie, you look back on it and you say, I would have done this different or that different.
Right.
And of course, making movies, you can forever keep editing and editing, and you're always gonna want to keep editing it. And then after a while, you finally have to say, okay, that's enough. I can't do it anymore, because you'll remake the whole movie if it lets you, or if you let it.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with screenwriting too. Is I don't get the people, I don't understand people when they do 20 drafts of a script. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
one or two, okay, I get that, maybe three, but at some point you just have to stop and just make the film. How long can you
exactly.
keep writing it? You can only go so long with saying, oh, I'm writing a script, but you were writing it 5 years ago. So, oh yeah, well, I'm on draft 15. So yeah, I mean, at times it's better to just get out there and do it. So, which actually leads me into the next question, which is, do you prefer to work more independently or with others?
Hmm. For pre-production, I'd rather be independent because I already know what I want and I'm focused on it. As far as, of course, making a movie, sometimes it feels like you need a village to make a movie. It's good to
Sure.
have good people around you. Um, Another thing I wanted to add too was like, I don't know if you've gone through this when you make a movie and you finish it. It's almost like you go through a little lag of depression because you're so used to doing something and all of a sudden it's done. It's like it's over, you know.
Right.
Of course, you get to see the final product, but as far as like working, I would say pre-production, independent. Learned a lot doing that for Mute. Production people, and of course post-production. I love the edit. I love the concept editing. I'm just not technical as far as Adobe Premiere. I can get through it a little bit, but I'd rather like rough cut it and then hand it off to somebody else to edit it, because they say a lot of times it's better to have somebody else edit your movie and not have the filmmaker actually do it, the director. Um, but you have to
Yeah.
be in coerce with the editor too, because you got to be on the same page to know what you want, the vision of the director.
Yeah, it's for my next feature, I think because I'm not a pro, but I do know how to use Premiere Pro, and I'll probably edit the first cut. So I'll do like an assembly cut. I'll get it down to a rough, and then hand it over to somebody to work with it from there, because it's too much of a pain when, especially if you don't live in the area that the editor is in. They're going to edit the film and then you're going to say, well, can you maybe use shot 2 instead of shot 3? And then they have to go back and kind of re-edit the whole thing. But if you give them some sort of rough edit to do, then I think that probably helps out a lot. So it's good for a director to know all these different things.
And I actually had a personal experience with that. I did a 48-hour film festival. I did a short called Pulling Strings. That's on YouTube too, and it was supposed to be 7 minutes or less. And
Excuse me.
I had no clue how to edit. I was brand new. I just basically shot it and directed it, and handed the editing over to somebody because it had to be done within 48 hours, of course. Um, and they edited it and they did a good job, but it wasn't how I envisioned it all the way.
Excuse me.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
just dry.
I went back and
Dry air.
re-edited it. It's almost 15 minutes long now. So
Well, that's another way of doing it too, is you have your film and then you have the editor cut. And then once you learn the software, you have your own cut. So
exactly,
I mean, I have one short where I think there's 4 different edits of the movie. And it's because I
oh
just wanted
wow.
to, yeah, I just wanted to play with it. There's a black and white version, there's an extended cut version, there's a shorter version, it's just playing with it to see what you can do and what you can learn. So, you know, um, so now these are 2 questions, but they can be answered in one. So explain something bad that happened during the production on Mute, and then something good that happened on the production.
Something bad and something good. I think I know something that was almost really bad. I had we had the camera mounted on the hood of the car, and the lead character Blaine was driving the car, and of course we were doing outside shots like B-roll type stuff, and he came back and the camera wasn't on the hood.
Oh, I
He thought the
remember
camera had fallen off.
that. Yeah.
He had it in the back seat. That was a scare. That turned out good. Let's see. Oh, the argument. The argument was supposed to be in a park because couples a lot of couples, they argue in parks for some reason. It seemed like a park's a good location to have a couple argue. I went there, had the location picked out. It was a Saturday when we went there, and the place was jam packed with people, and it happened to be really windy, so we actually had to go to a plan B, and we went to Donna's house and just said, "Gonna have an argument in your house, just like it's supposed to happen." So that ended up working out pretty good. Plus, we got to film finding the note. It was all right there, you know. So that was something that could have went really wrong if I didn't have a backup plan for.
Yeah, and you would never know it from the film, so it just seems very natural that that's where it would take place. So so it was a good choice to go film at her house.
But like as far as good, I thought the dive bar was kind of like the diamond in the rough. We found that location. It worked out good, and the people were. I couldn't believe they let us film there, and they turned the AC off for us for I don't know how long were we there, like 5 hours or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, 4 or 5 hours. Yeah,
4 hours. And they were operating. Of course, they were operating as a bar, and it all worked out. So that was something that really was blessed to have. That's the dive bar over Angie Randazzo. People were great over there.
Yeah, they really were. So now you've brought this up a couple times. So your experience with like editing software and just like production software in general, you started off just kind of with like white paint, you said, with like not knowing anything. So from there, where are you today with it? Are you much more comfortable with doing your own editing, or do you still just kind of like handing it off to somebody?
Oh, I'm a lot more comfortable as far as like knowing how to edit. Because like when I first started, I didn't even know the rule of 1/3. I knew none of that. In fact, there's a book that I read that helped me a lot. What is the name of it? The 5 C's of Cinematography. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
It has the 5 C's. What's it? Camera angles, continuity, cutting, close up, and composition. So like it's like the Bible of cinematography, and it's helpful for directors too, because of course it's vital to have the angles right. It drives the story. Then composition, of course, you want it balanced. You want everything to look good. And the rule of 1/3. People tend to put the main subject in the middle, and it's not supposed to be a little bit to the left, a little to the right, unless it's on purpose. The continuity is extremely important because it keeps the audience's attention, because you got to make sure everything like lines up. You don't want to, like, there is a couple goofs in Mute that, like, I noticed them, like, they're so subtle, but they're noticeable when you see them. If you look in the when he's looking around for the hitchhiker in the car, if you look in the mirror, you can see the camera guy with the camera.
I didn't notice that.
Still. It's amazing. It's so still. Yeah. And if you can actually see my arm a little bit, but if you look in the passenger's mirror, and he still is a statue. I don't know how he did it, but it's obvious it's him. That was a continuity issue. There was another one too. What was it? There's one where he said, I've been on the road over 300 days this year, and it's like June, so it's unless his year's not start from January. Little things like that, but the camera in the mirror was probably the biggest one.
That's funny. I didn't notice I didn't see it, so it's pretty. It must, my attention was on Rob, so yeah, I wasn't even looking at the mirror. But now I'll have to.
But the focus group, somebody picked that out. They picked it up. I knew it was in there, and they go, "Oh my gosh, there's a camera guy in the mirror." It's not a big deal, but someone did notice that.
You're like, stop looking at the continuity. Pay attention to the actor.
And also the white paint. You noticed I snuck in the white paint poster at the motel.
Yes.
When he's walking, I had my editor. It wasn't there, of course, so he had to.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was thinking, wait, I don't remember that being at the motel. So yeah, so that's a VFX then, so that you threw that in as visual effect.
Mm-hmm. Just a little like nod there.
That's funny. Yeah, it looks good. You would never know. It looks like it's actually up on the wall. So, because I even questioned myself when I saw it.
It's almost like, why should it be there for a motel? It's kind of odd, you know.
Excuse me.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah, it's just weather out
the
here.
Clown Motel. I can see it being on the. You can see it being in the Clown Motel. And isn't there a Clown Motel out there near outside of Vegas?
Yes.
There's a motel. It's a Clown Motel. Yeah.
Pardon me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah,
It's for sale. I think you can buy it now.
Yeah, it's a few hours away from here, but yeah, I shot a film up there. I acted and did crew work on it up there, and there's been a few others, the Clown Motel 2, and a few others were shot up there. So it's a weird place, but it's kind of cool to shoot at. So
yeah.
So now we're coming up on the last few questions here.
Okay.
Where can the film be watched? I'm guessing not purchased at this time, but where can it be watched? Is it YouTube, Tubi? Where can people find it?
It could be, you could watch it on YouTube right now or on Facebook. If you go to Rob Darren Newberger, Newberger, it's on Facebook. You can find it on there because I always post it up about once a week. You can go to YouTube and find it. Just type in Mute Stephen King short film. There's a trailer on there, and then there's the full movie, the 27-minute movie. And then there's also a live stream we did when we premiered it online, per Stephen King's permission. It's like an hour and 15 minutes because, of course, we had a question and answers afterwards. And we did. My editor, he wanted to do an intro for it, like a little intro. It's funny because he put together a little intro for it. I don't know if you saw it, where he's walking in the woods and he gets the DVD from a ghoul to introduce the movie. He shot it in he did that whole thing in like 3 hours. Because I was actually supposed to be down there for that, but I was up in Pennsylvania at the time, and the weather was really bad, so I was unable to make it. So we had to do everything over the phone, and he made that little intro. It's something he wanted to do, but it's an hour and 15 minutes, and they have the question and the answers afterwards.
Okay,
turned out pretty cool.
Yeah, I tuned in for a little bit of that. I got to it late because of my job, but yeah, I think I missed the film itself, but I was there for the Q&A, so seemed like people enjoyed it. So,
I know it took a while for the questions to come in, but once they start coming in, they were rolling.
Yeah, you get nervous. You don't want to be that person asking the dumb question, so you wait till somebody sends one in, and then it's the floodgates open. So,
and you don't want to be the guy not getting the questions, and you're like, oh, come on, somebody ask a question.
Ask something, please. What type of Pop-Tarts do I like? Anything. So with all of this now being said, and how do you stay organized and prioritize tasks for this whole thing? So now that you can kind of look back, how did you do it all?
First thing I did was I wrote the script with the actors in mind. And then I made sure I cast it and everything like that. What I do, everybody's different, but what I do is on the script, I color code. Like when it has the character's name, it's in a certain color, props are in a certain color, actions are in a certain color. I color code everything. It kind of helps me visualize that way. One thing I learned about filmmaking is I used to not have a lot of patience. And editing and make you patient like crazy because you can edit all day for like a 1 minute, 2 minute clip. So I learned patience. So I learned to do a little bit each day. Don't try to do everything at once. And when I came out to Vegas, I knew I had to do some location scouting and plan B and plan C and everything. And it took me all of 8 days to actually get all that done. And I was gone like sometimes 16, 17 hours a day, just location driving and setting stuff up and getting, of course, the confession booth, making sure the studio's good, And but I do a little bit each day. Like I set a time, like I said, okay, we're gonna film in June, so we've got 4 months. So I just said, okay, we're gonna do this week, that week, and just I color code. That's my little secret thing.
Oh, that's excuse me. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because like if you say he hits the girl in the head with a hammer or an axe. He swings the axe at her, so you need an axe. So basically, that's a prop. So it might be a blue. So I have my prop list, and all my props are on there, so it kind of keeps me organized. And like actions might be red, the dialogue might be black, the character might be green, so I keep it that way. And then I keep separate kind of files with everything in it. And then like when I mailed like all my props and stuff out from North Carolina, I think I had 9 boxes of drapery and props, and I mean, you name it, I had it. Clips, I mean, film equipment. I even had a backup camera in case, Romeo, thank God he was awesome, and I talked to him on the phone for I don't know weeks before we shot and went through the shot list, and I felt real comfortable with him. But I still had that backup camera just in case, because I was going to film that movie no matter what. And he was there, and as you know, he's pretty tight. Good, good cinematographer.
Well, and everything went smoothly, so I don't remember there being too many things that went wrong. I don't really think anything went wrong. I think it all went smooth. I mean, you knew exactly what you wanted. So it was just more of for the desert, cars driving by, or the bar noise, or things that you can't predict or really help. So yeah, I remember things went by very smoothly. I don't remember there was any time where it's like, this guy's not organized. I don't remember that at all. So yeah, you did a really good job with that.
Look at the church when we filmed the outdoor scene. That's something I didn't prepare for. We filmed it on like a Saturday, and they had a service going on while we were doing that. And I didn't know they did church service on Saturdays. That's something I overlooked. And I don't know if you remember, we had to hurry up and get out of there pretty quick. We had people like walking out.
Oh yeah. I think I remember. Wasn't one take Rob walking, and all of a sudden the doors opened and people just started coming out, and it was like, what's going on here? And we had to wait till everybody left. So then, or at least a good number of them left, and then had to reshoot it. So once again, something that you can't totally predict. So that's that's funny. Yeah, I remember that now. So okay, and so final question, which is. Since we're mostly talking about, Mute, I do like to give the filmmaker an opportunity to talk about something they would like to plug from the past, the present, or the future. So what would you like to plug?
Oh, wow. Well, of course, White Paint, a clown story, that's on YouTube right now, too. I kind of call it my film school because I never went to film school. So that's kind of that's way Ted Michaels. He said his first 10 movies was film school. So that was sort of my film school, even though I'm proud of it. Took me 7 years to make it. So I would say I'm plugging that. It's on YouTube. When these film festivals start back up again, I'd like to try to get it in some film festivals. I'd like to do maybe a double feature type thing. I'll go ahead and show this. Let's see if you can see it. Dollar Baby book.
There's the book that you're in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a good book. It has there's like 55 Dollar Baby filmmakers in here interviewed, and their reviews on their movies, and of course a lot of special Mick Garris in it.
Nice.
I want to plug Mute, of course, and I do have this is interesting, but I'd written a Lauren Hardy script. It's been about 8 years since I wrote it. I wrote it with my uncle, actually, and it's a modern day buddy movie, cross country buddy movie. And I had some people that I knew in California that were really big in the movie world. We did Evan Almighty, Bruce Almighty, people like that. Anyway, they gave me they referred me over to a creative artist agency, because I was sending it out to every agency I could, and I kept getting sent back because they won't even really talk to you without an agent. So I got referred to them, and they actually accepted it and had to sign paperwork saying that they could read it, and it's still sitting in their file cabinet, their shelves. There's the guy that was Dan Aloni. He was the agent in charge of it. Pretty big guy out there. He had switched and went over to, I believe it was William and Morris, one of those agencies. So it's still sitting at CAA right now. And it was actually endorsed by Stan Laurel's daughter. She read the treatment I sent her a treatment. She read it. She loved it. She called me. She said, I love this, but I don't have financing for it, but I love the story and I'll endorse it. Somebody wants to make it.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, I'd like to get that made someday, of course, but cross country, it's going to cost a lot of money. Plus you have to have you have to have legal rights to it and everything like that. So my argument was Little Rascals came out with was it Our Gang? They came out with the movie, did like 54 million at the box office. So I'm saying, man, I think we have a better story actually. And I'd like to make a couple of documentaries in the future. I want to do one I'd like to do one on the pharmaceutical industry. Very personal to me. I'd love to do a documentary in Antarctica. My dad was in the Navy, spent a lot of time there. So that's kind of personal to me, but that's stuff that's like on the radar down the road. But that's pretty much my plugins.
Oh, yeah, a lot of stuff to look forward to. So, man, fingers crossed on that script. So,
I forgot the main one, Mute 2.
Mute 2.
Well, it's kind of Mute 1. All That You Love Would Be Carried Away, the Stephen King short story. Actually got greenlighted to turn that story into a short film, just like I did for Mute. And what I wanted to do originally, I wanted to make a Mute 2, like when he rolls away at the end and says, "You got to move," kind of goes to the next destination, and then All That You Love Would Be Carried Away. I was going to try to tie that in with the hitchhiker, with the graffiti, have him be the lead character in the motel. It's like there's like one character in that story. That's it. The one character, it's two, if you count the front desk guy and the guy going into the hotel room to commit suicide. And I thought about it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a prequel. I'm going to make the Mute that we made a prequel to the new one.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Interesting.
I'm sorry. I got that reversed. Make that Mute 2 actually Mute 1. So I can use all my actors from the Mute. I just because obviously if we did part 2, wouldn't be able to use Cowboy Bob, wouldn't be able to use Donna, Barb, because they got murdered.
Right.
And looking back on it, I'd like to be able to use those because they really want me to do a Mute 2, but I don't think they realize that they got killed off. So I'm trying to figure out a way to write that. I'm in the process of writing it. I actually wrote it originally, but I'm gonna have to go back and make it, like pre-Mute. So I'm having trouble getting that story on paper, but that's my goal. And I got a year to make it. So, and it does snow in the story. There's snow in the story. So I'm thinking, okay, either I'm gonna have to go to Vegas and film in Mount Charleston in the middle of winter, or have no snow in it. So I'm kind of fighting with that right now. I was going to originally try to have it done by this spring and then film, but obviously there's no snow in Mount Charleston in the spring. So more than likely it's going to be filmed early next year.
Yeah, so it snows up there. So right now there's snow up there. So
because it's been snow up there.
Yeah, it's been pretty cold out here. So it's there's not a lot of it left up there, but it definitely snows up there. And I've been up there when it is snowing. So you would never think it's Vegas, with how it snows and what it looks like and everything. So I mean, you could make it any location that you wanted to, but that's definitely interesting. So, and Stephen King is it's not like there hasn't been a sequel to Stephen King films. So, Mute 2 would be understandable. So it's, maybe even 3, 4, 5 as, as the Stephen King movies go.
It's, I believe it's the first time I've heard there's people that have done $2 Baby movies, but there's never been someone that did a 1 and 2, combined 2 of his stories into one. So it'd be like the first time doing that, which would be interesting.
Nice.
Which could stand out, And I have my editor. He's a pretty good camera guy. So if I go that way, I'm thinking about having 2 cameras rolling. Maybe have Romeo, because Romeo City would be interested. Have Romeo, and then have Jody. Have 2 cameras rolling, and of course that'll save time. And
sure,
Anthony would be the lead character in it, and kind of go from there.
Nice.
Oh, another thing too, I got to work out too is the story has a Motel 6 in it. said it's supposed to be a Motel 6. So I don't know if there's any Motel 6s in Mount Charleston, but so I may have to film 2 different locations somehow.
Yeah, there's more lodges up there, like big lodges. Yeah, I don't think that there's a Motel 6 up there, but I haven't looked for one, so I don't think so. So yeah, it may have to be 2 different places. Yeah.
But
So, which is fine.
Basically, film it, because you can film it tied in, with the sign, and then have the snow.
Sure.
Maybe you might have to create some fake snow or something somewhere along the way, but
yeah, just don't shoot the ground. Always keep the camera up.
No.
Just have somebody go, oh, look at all that snow down there, and then you just don't cut to it, or you just cut to just a stock shot of snow, So, all right, well, cool. Well, then we are at the very end. So I thank you. This was fun. This was great, and hopefully now people know about more about Mute and what a dollar baby is and all of that. So any last words that you would like to say? Otherwise, we'll say goodbye.
Anyone can do a dollar baby.
I say that one more time.
I just want to thank you for everyone that's watching and listening, and it means a lot. Just watching the movie means a lot. It's a contribution itself. I want to thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you for being on.
Just appreciate it. Appreciate the time, and it's a good time here.
Yeah, and I'll put a link down below to Mute. I didn't know that White Paint was on YouTube, so I can I'll put a link down for that too, so people can check that out if you would like.
Yeah.
So okay, well, thank you everybody, and thank you, Rob, and we will catch you on the next episode. So see you there. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And end. There we go. Okay, cool. Thank you, sir.
Have a good one, John.
I'm feeling good.
Disconnect. How do you do this?
I think I just have to disconnect you. So it says end meeting for all. So I will do that now. And thanks once again. I appreciate it.
How long was our interview about?
A little over an hour, I think.
How long was our interview? Was it?
Little over an hour.
Okay. Time flew by.
Awesome. Yeah. Most of these, the first 2 were 90 minutes. The second one or the third one was around 75. So I think for a film that's 30 minutes, this is actually some good time. So longer than I thought it would be.
I'd like to maybe someday in the future do one on White Paint. The reason being is the story behind White Paint is probably as good as the story itself. Just had people die on me. the clown literally committed suicide.
Oh wow!
I mean, it was just Tony Curtis was supposed to be in it, and he passed away 2 weeks before we were shooting.
Oh geez,
that was I woke up to that news, and it's kind of devastating, But
well, and that's what I've told people about this is that's why I don't want to have one person on and talk about their entire career, and then there's nothing to talk about. So if we talk about Mute now, down the road, you then talk about White Paint. And then down the road, you talk about Mute 2. And then down the road, so it's that whole thing. So there's always something to talk about. Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And I'll definitely check out, if you can, send me a link to White Paint, and I'll watch it and also add it to the description on YouTube. So.
Oh, I meant to tell you something. I watched Aximus 2 the other night, and I love your lighting and your shots.
Oh, thank you. I mean, thank you.
I thought I enjoyed it. I thought the lighting with the green and red was clever. I thought it was really clever how you did that with Christmas,
thank you.
Christmas thing and the shots. I could tell you've edited it before. I could tell you've done some editing. It was really good.
Matt Collins, who lives out here, he's the cameraman. He has a partner that works with him. So he lit it, he shot it, and he edited it. But it was important to me that we follow the same as the first film. So I told him, green here, red here. I was with him during all the editing, all the camera shots. So he's a better DP than the first guy who did a good job on the first film, but he's like a professional guy that goes out and shoots commercials and music videos and all that stuff. So, and even though I think editors get frustrated when somebody knows editing, because that's what I wanted to be. Originally, I wanted to be an editor. So I took editing courses. And so I think when an editor comes across somebody who goes, no, that's not going to match, or nope, this is better, they get a little frustrated. So Matt got a little frustrated with me a couple of times, but I think the end product shows that the best takes and stuff were used. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. You learn small things matter too. Just like an argument scene when she leaves and slams the door. Of course, the door slamming, and just the little things like that really matter.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, no, I appreciate the compliment. So it's
no problem.
Now it's time to move on to Xmas 3 and 4. So
well, I can't wait because I watched them both a couple of times actually.
Oh, cool. Thank you. So
I thought it was lit really well too.
Yeah, I've seen Mute twice now. So I watched it this morning because I always like to have it fresh in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the desert scene, it's a little shaky, but it kind of was meant to be like that, handheld more. But it worked, it worked.
Right.
And I had to break up that desert scene too because it was so long. That's one thing good my editor did. He was good at where to break it. He had the breaking points of where it flashed back. He was really good about doing that and with what he had and everything. So it worked out.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I'm not going to say impressed because I knew that we were making something good. So when I saw it, I was happy with it. So yeah, I knew it would turn out to be good.
Awesome. You guys were awesome too. I was blessed to have a good crew and good cast, and I thought it was cast pretty well. And
oh yeah,
it just worked out.
Well, and everybody's here for part 2. So, keep me in mind for that.
Absolutely. So we have all the game back. Even got the bartender. I'm going to have him be like the front desk guy. So he'll be like the reoccurring guy, that's service industry guy, how you want to look at it.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on
everybody's
Facebook.
in, so we're good.
Sweet. So
yeah. Okay.
All righty.
All right,
so,
John. Well, you have a good day, bud.
Thank you. You too. And this will be out next week.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Take care, man.
Thanks, you too, man.
Right, we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Take care.